Hello, it has been a long time and I thought it might be fun to do I thought it was time for a sketchbook share. So let's learn a little bit about why I picked this particular format. This is one that I made out of a watercolor notepad, 130-pound watercolor paper, and I also had some tinted papers that I made into the signatures for it, like this. And I did this because sketchbooks are pricey, and I've gone through a couple of them, and I just didn't like the size of the format that much, and the paper quality was not great. So I figured I had a watercolor notepad sitting around my studio that I parted out. I watched a how-to on Coptic stitching and putting together signatures. That's the little kind of folds in here. How to fold that, and then how to do the binding process with the Coptic stitch. I thought it would take an hour, and it probably took me 3, but that's how things go when you do something that you've never done before. One of the things I like about the stitch is that when I open up the sketchbook, it's flat. And I have hauled this around in backpacks, and it's held together really well. So, one thing, this is indeed a sketchbook. It's a spot for ideas. I have a lot of half-recorded things in here. I was kind of figuring out what format I want to use for my nature journal setup. It is indeed a sketchbook, not a finished set of artwork. Let's get started with this sketchbook tour. Again, homemade, home stitched together sketchbook. I did this in February of 2022 and started off with it going out in the field in March. And I'm in Minnesota. It was a cold late winter. Here we had a program that was maple syruping, so I took my sketchbook out in the sugar bush and captured some of that. I had some prompts about the different types of maples, including box elder and sugar maple, and had some fun with doing gouache studies of these two types of trees. Added some information about the different branch patterns for how those trees grow. I had found a crow in a nearby neighborhood that was frozen solid, and I brought it back, kept it frozen, and sketched it about 3 weeks later, returned it to nature after that. But I had some interesting questions from that encounter. Here's another little sketch. This was bird feeder observations. Lots of questions. This one I went out with my plein air easel, and this one's more like a landscape painting. I just recorded some notes about what I heard and what I saw going on that day. This was a visit out to a woods area near where I work, where we had barred owls nesting. I took some notes about the tree location and quirks of the tree that I thought might relate to the nesting area being selected, and then I grabbed a photo to sketch the barred owl from. This next sketch I made because we had a really big, old, amazing Norway maple that had to come down. It was right in the midst of our power mast for our power lines, and it needed to go, but I wanted to do a little goodbye sketch of it before it came down. This one is the evaporator out at the Nature Center, which we have fired up in March and into April. A challenge with this one was sketching all of the reflections and then trying to get a little contrast between that and the steam coming off the evaporator. Next up, I visited a nearby pond and checked out some of the waterfowl, including trumpeter swans. We had a phoebe, and I did a little sketch and a map of where I saw that phoebe flying. It had some very distinct perches it was visiting and calling from over and over. The next sketch I created while leading a nature journaling program at the Nature Center. I heard a kingfisher. I was excited about that. It was early season, and I was seeing my very first warblers, including this little yellow-rumped warbler. And I did a sketch of some of my participants where they were hunkered down to use their notebooks. Another sketch I made with my homeschool kiddos. This one's just pencil. I only had a little time to add watercolor. One of the challenges with these notebooks is getting time to circle back and finish entries. I'm finding I prefer entries to be in ink so they don't smudge all over, but you know what? This was kind of my first go at keeping a nature journal throughout the year, so I'm learning as I go and kind of making updates as needed. These next pages are a couple of my personal favorites. We had bloodroot up, and at the same time, lots of little warblers moving through. So I kind of grouped up the yellow containing warblers all together and did a series of sketches of them. I borrowed some images from different bird ID guides in order to make these sketches. So I did my listening in the field and then created my sketches back in the studio for those 2 pages. This one is a field sketch of basswood versus oak. I loved the little baby leaves of the basswood trees. And then rolling on into later May, lily of the valley up at my house. And I recorded when I started hearing American toads, one of my favorite sounds of the springtime. Rolling on into proper summertime, my next entries are about dragonflies as I saw them emerging and beginning to look for food, both at home and at the nature center. These were some that I noticed. We have widow skimmer and then an ebony jewelwing. We have an amazing emergence of those, usually in June, close to where I live. And then this last one, the common whitetail. I don't know about you, but I feel like every entry that goes in here is like, oh, it's my favorite. This was a green pepper that grew in my garden early, and it was kind of goofy looking. Then we get to bur oak, some of the features of the bur oak, a little trip in the middle of the summer, and a couple of pages mapping out muskrat versus otter near my house. Now, this is getting a little long, and there's more of this sketchbook to go. I think this might be a good point to pause and regroup, get out with our own nature journals, and enjoy. If I take a look at my sketchbook, we are to here. We're about halfway, a little more than halfway through, and there's more to share, but it's gorgeous outside. And I think I'm gonna take a break here and take myself outside to do some sketching, recording what's going on right now. I encourage you to do the same. It's a beautiful May day right here, right now. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sketchbook tour, this nature journal tour. Stay tuned. I've got more in this notebook that I will share in an upcoming episode. And I will show a few of my sketches that I'm currently working on in my current nature journal. All right, until next time, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and follow along at Laurel Sundberg Studio. Bye-bye.